Every political arrangement has a logic. Some are built on loyalty, some on ideology, some on fear. This one was built on something else entirely. It was built on a name, and on the man who was slowly drowning beneath it. April 6, 1994, a presidential plane crashes near Kigali airport. Among those on board, Juvenal Habyarimana, the president of Rwanda. The crash would become an interesting moment in a century already soaked in blood. But it did not cause what followed. What followed had been planned for years, prepared in secret, rehearsed in rehearsal massacres, organized through institutions and propaganda networks that had spent years conditioning a population for mass murder. The genocide against the Tutsi was not an accident of grief. It was not a spontaneous eruption of rage. It was a project, systematic, premeditated, and fully underway long before that plane left the runway. But this story is not about the genocide itself. It is about what came after, about the son of the man in that plane and how 30 years later, his name became a political instrument in the hands of those who have never stopped trying to rewrite what happened. After the plane crash, Habyarimana's family fled Rwanda. They arrived first in what was then Zaire, a country being held together by one man's iron grip, Mobutu Sese Seko, president of Zaire. He received them and he took a particular interest in the young Jean-Luc. According to intelligence sources, Mobutu called the boy brave. Jean-Luc had reportedly walked to the wreckage of his father's plane, camera in hand, and taken photographs. In the aftermath of the worst night of his life, he documented it. Mobutu gave him $5 million. The family later moved to Gabon, where President Omar Bongo extended further support. 3 million more. The Habyarimana name, even in exile, was still good business. Eventually, France, where Jean-Luc and his family have remained ever since. The money ran out, the relationships collapsed, and somewhere along the way, the son of a president became a man living with his mother and his 2 children, in quiet, diminishing circumstances. That is when Kinshasa came calling. Felix Tshisekedi is a man who has run out of legitimate arguments. Unable to justify his country's decades-long refusal to dismantle the genocides sheltering on its soil, he went looking for a distraction. And in Jean-Luc Habyarimana, broke, isolated, and desperate for relevance, he found one. To understand the context, one must understand what Rwanda is actually doing in this region, and what Kinshasa claims it is doing. Rwanda's military posture in eastern Congo is not aggression. It is a response to a direct and documented threat, the FDLR, the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, a militia founded by genocides, an armed group that carried out the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994 and has been sheltering in Congolese territory ever since, using it as a base to threaten Rwanda's borders and its people. For Rwanda, this is border defense. This is a sovereign state refusing to allow the architects and heirs of a genocide to regroup, rearm, and return. Kinshasa's refusal or inability to dismantle the FDLR is not a neutral position. It is a choice, and it is a choice that implicates Tshisekedi directly in the protection of mass murderers. Facing that indictment, Tshisekedi chose not to answer it. He chose instead to manufacture an enemy, to redirect attention, to fund propaganda, and to do it through the most morally bankrupt vehicle he could find, the son of a regime that organized the genocide. Not because Jean-Luc was capable, not because he had followers or credibility or a coherent platform, but because he was available, because he was needy, and because his surname could stir old hatreds in people who had never been asked to examine them. Intelligence sources describe what followed not as a political alliance, but as a purchase. Tshisekedi's camp handed Jean-Luc just enough money to keep him talking, never enough to give him independence, always enough to keep him pointed in the right direction. It was not strategy. It was desperation wearing the costume of strategy. What emerged from this arrangement was Extra Africa Media Group, a media platform that sources describe as a vehicle for anti-Kigali narratives. stories that recycle old grievances, content designed to inflame, not inform, to recast Rwanda's defense of its own people as aggression, to give genocide sympathizers a modern microphone dressed in the language of journalism. It produced almost nothing of substance, no movement, no coalition, no serious political structure. What Tshisekedi paid for was noise, and even the noise was thin. Sporadic posts, recycled accusations, a mouthpiece that struggled to be heard. The money sent from Kinshasa was supposed to build an operation. Instead, it disappeared into the same pattern that had defined Jean-Luc's life since exile. Spent without return, consumed without consequence, gone without record. Tshisekedi had not funded a propaganda machine. He had funded a habit. And now, sources say the frustration in Kinshasa is turning into something uglier. A president who exploited a broken man, angry that the broken man did not perform. There is a fitting justice to the way this arrangement is unraveling. Tshisekedi reached for the cheapest possible weapon, a man hollowed out by loss and dependency, and is now discovering that cheap weapons break in your hand. He chose a front man he could control and finds instead a liability he cannot manage. He invested in symbolism and received in return exactly what symbolism is worth. Nothing durable, nothing real. Jean-Luc Habyarimana did not choose the name he was born with. He did not choose the history attached to it. But history in this region rarely asks permission. And when that history includes a genocide, one that was planned, not provoked, the weight of a name becomes something heavier than inheritance. It becomes complicity. If that name is borrowed to shield those who would repeat the past, what Tshisekedi built was not a coalition. It was a performance staged by a presidency that has no honest answer for why the killers of the 1994 genocide are still camped on Congolese soil, still armed, still protected, and still pointing toward Rwanda. He could not defend the indefensible, so he hired someone to shout over it. When politics runs out of legitimacy, it turns to borrowed history. It finds a diminished man, hands him a grievance, and calls it movement. It recruits the past to fight the battles the present cannot justify. It mistakes exploitation for vision, and it mistakes noise for power. Jean-Luc Habyarimana is not the architect of an anti-Rwanda front. He is its most revealing exhibit. A reminder that a genocide does not end on the last day of killing. It continues in the denial and the propaganda, and the presidents who fund the denial, because a healed Rwanda is a powerful one. And a powerful Rwanda cannot be manipulated, cannot be accused, cannot be made to look like the aggressor by the very country that shelters the genocidaires of 1994.